Hello and welcome to episode 5 of the Rugby League Coach Podcast, recorded on the 18th of January 2024. My name is Lee Addison. I've got a very, very special coaching podcast for you today. I have recorded a coach mentor session with two coaches that I work with in England, James Varley and Scott Lynch. James didn't know when we came on to record. Scott had a little bit of an idea that we were doing something. And I think it's going to be a great insight for all you coaches. And all being well, I'm going to put it on YouTube in full as well, because I want you all to see what goes on in the Coach Mentor program, but also to see what these coaches are working towards. This is episode 5, as I've said. If you've not listened to episodes 1, 2, 3, and 4, episode 1 and 2 were with Rob Vaille and James Ambrosini, both community coaches. Rob Vaille down in Sydney, owner of S2S Sports Australia. James Ambrosini, HP, High Performance SAS Academy up in Brisbane and Gold Coast. We're in partnership, all three of us are sort of in partnership in terms of delivering the Aim Higher program and other things in 2024. Episode 3 was just me going on about the salary cap, and that got a lot of reaction from you. Thanks so much for all your comments on Facebook in particular. You know, they're really appreciated. Please don't be scared to disagree. And episode 4 was with Brock Shepherd, the NRL assistant and New South Wales Cup coach at Canberra Raiders. That dropped a couple of days ago, and some of you won't have got around to listening to that, but it's there. Episode 5, all about coaches and coach mentoring. If you want to get hold of me, rugbyleaguecoach.com.au, email admin@rugbyleaguecoach.com.au. Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram at Rugby League Coach, and Twitter, RL Coach on the net. I got all that out then, didn't I? I have got a TikTok account too. I've just haven't used it for ages. Can't be bothered. Now, like I said, coach mentoring. Some coaches are great at planning ahead. Some coaches aren't. Some coaches don't realise they should plan so much. Some coaches do plan, but plan in the wrong direction. Even in this session, you'll see how well planned Scott is, and you'll see that James is a bit more, I'd say James is a bit more artistic. I'd say Scott's quite scientific. James is a bit more artistic. He sees things differently, and it's really intriguing. Now, what I hope you'll see or hear on this Coach Mentor special of the podcast is the different processes we go through to plan pre-season, the detail we're going into. You're going to hear the interview in a moment. This is all you're going to hear from me next week. So the week commencing the 21st of January, I think. It's only going to be one podcast, I think. I've interviewed several people, so they're all ready to go. I just need to put them together. Keep talking to me on social media. I love it. But we're going to go straight into the interview. Hope you like it, and I'll hear from you or see you or speak to you next week. All right, boys, little treat for you. This coach mentor session, what's this? Is this about the 6th that we've done together? 7th, something like that? This is gonna be a special episode 5 of the Rugby League Coach Podcast. But you've got to be natural, right? So, Scott, you had a little bit of a tip-off. James, you've had no tip-off.
No, not at all, no.
The reason I'm doing this, number one, I think it's going to be a great insight for coaches. Number 2, obviously, to promote the Coach Mentor program. So, first of all, can either of you, and I'll probably start with you, Scott, because you've had a bit more time to get your head around it, just give people an overview of what you do as a coach?
So currently, I'm coaching an under-15 girls team. I've only been coaching, I've only had my level 2 coaching qualification since May last year. Was helping out a little bit from sort of November the year before that, so I'm pretty new to coaching. But we've decided to start a new journey and start a new team from scratch. We started that in August, back end of August. So yeah, got about 14, 15 girls at the moment. So yeah, it's quite an interesting journey at the moment.
Training in West Yorkshire in the middle of winter, and somebody else training in West Yorkshire, James Varley. James, listeners of the Rugby League Coach podcast in the past will be familiar with you. So you should be a dab hand at this, but you tell them what you're doing now as a coach.
I'm coaching a local under-16s team, Keighley Albion under-16s.
Your first ever coaching job, isn't it?
First ever coaching job. I was assistant from last year because I got my level 1 qualification before last season started. But now I took my level 2 last April. Well, last April it completed. So I've got the head coaching role for the team this year, and I'm just enjoying the challenge, and I just want to try and put a different style of play on them and try and adjust things a bit, really.
No worries. Between you, can you give a bit of an overview of what we've done on the programme, just for everyone's benefit? I mean, they've probably heard me say it 1,000 times, but I'd love it to come from one of you two, whoever wants to jump in first.
Yeah, just the idea, really, of how important pre-season is, trying to build a matrix and planning on a calendar, placing the elements that you want to do with your team, core units like individual players, units, which is more than one. So say a 3v2 or something like that, and then the team element, and then just putting it together, but planning it into a matrix.
Yeah.
So your sessions are planned rather than just being ad hoc, and then putting the elements into an 8-week cycle.
Anything you want to add to that, Scott?
Yeah, so obviously it was greatly sort of asked us from there what we wanted to achieve with our teams for the coming season, and then taking that kind of vision, placing that into a matrix, and then really expanding upon that into the session. And as James said, it's kind of new concept to me, really, where we broke it down into core and unit and team. But then, something I've found really useful is just looking at the different intensities and using periodization for running through that plan, and asking why. It seems to be a massive thing, but it's kind of just coming through everything. Why? Just asking.
Yeah, why do we do what?
Why? Because I was just throwing out there like, oh yeah, we'll do that for 15 minutes. Well,
why?
And you just think, you'll break a session down. Well, I'll do 3 20-minute sessions within that, and why?
You're not allowed to make me sound like an arsehole in this recording. That's my only stipulation, right? You got the nicest.
Sometimes I think you need to be kind of
We've had some quite robust discussions, haven't we, boys? Like we've
definitely.
This is one of the coach mentor sessions that I do as a group. We've had Trent from Australia join us as well, and one of the I met with Trent last night. So we're recording now on the 18th of January. So my morning, your 17th evening over there in England. And speaking with Trent last night, his second session of the week in his first week was all defence, apart from the warm up, and it was 1-man tackle, 2-man tackle, 3-man tackle, and he didn't put a game in. And I said, and he's not finalised his matrix yet. And I said, this is why you need your matrix, because you're not trying to get the result on that Thursday. You're trying to get the result 7-8 Thursdays down the line, kind of thing. So that's really an important thing of what I do. And what would you say, James, has been the biggest transformation for you in terms of just one big transformation so far that we've worked on?
Well, again, learning the work-rest ratios and putting it on this, like the question I asked you, well, is this, why do we do it like that? The processes are below match intensity. That's when they pick the skills up.
Yeah.
And then you adjust the intensities to do it under fatigue.
Yeah.
And then you go back to correct the skill and reduce the intensity again to work on the skill again. And it's a logical cycle why you do it, but it's learning about the intensities, and it's really good. It is a actual cycle.
Scott,
that works on each skill.
Scott, what's your biggest takeaway?
I'm torn between sort of building the structure, but then having that built within a vision as well. So it is like kind of you've like you say, you're not planning one session ahead. It's you have to have that structure in place, and then it's kind of you're building towards a date. Or a period in time that you
takes a bit of pressure off that session, doesn't it? Like it.
Yeah, I was always trying to maximize that one session. I want to get as much out of that session as possible, and sometimes you don't need to, because at the end of the day, it's again, it's got to be. I was always, before we spoke, I was always trying to fit too much in a session. I'd be like,
very common that with coaches, very common.
Whereas now, I'm kind of breaking it down, and we are really benefiting from simplifying it a little bit, but not being scared to think that I'm not going to fit this in today. You think, well, week 5 we're going to hit it then, week 7 we're going to hit it then. So by the time we're ready to play, it'll be there.
I'd call it a holistic approach to your pre-season rather than just going in willy-nilly. So, boys, jump in if I've got this wrong, but we're going through a process where we did an overview of, I assessed you where you were at. I mean, James, I've known you for a while, so I've assessed you for 2 years, I think. But definitely with Scott, it was a case of where do you see yourself on this? And that allowed us to identify possible coaching areas to improve and where you were good. They've stood up to scrutiny, I think, after that initial assessment. And then we've started planning pre-season, and we've gone from a big overall plan, which is what we're actually going to coach, what we want our team to do. And then we've started dropping it into a plan. And James, you've got an 8-week pre-season, which you are, 1 week into?
Well, 1 week into it. It's like the way it's going to work now is like an 8-session pre-season, really, because we can do some weeks we can have 1 session, some weeks we can have 2.
Okay. Is that because of your work commitments?
Because of work commitments and availability of facilities as well.
Okay. So something else you could do too. I mean, is there any chance you can get an assistant that can be there when you're not there?
It's looking like I can.
Good.
Actually,
so
put
faith in that assistant, and you mentor your assistant as well. And Scott, you've got a 9-week pre-season program, and that's based on start times of your competitions. And you're what, Scott? 2 weeks into yours?
2 weeks now. Yeah.
All right. So I've got in my notes that last week, Scott, your matrix is up to date now. What I will say for those listening to the podcast, there will be some visuals in this, I have no doubt. And if you're not looking at a clip on social media or YouTube or whatever it may be, I will do my best to explain what's on the screen to you if that's on the screen. So Scott, we're at the stage now where we're really drilling deep into your sessions, aren't we? So the process with you is plan, do, review now, because we've done the big pre-season plan, and I dare say if people want to see it, I could always put it on my website and make them go behind a paywall if you want. It's up to you. I'll give you a cut. And James, naughty James, still hasn't done his matrix as last time we spoke. Where are we at with that, James?
I'm still working on the matrix a bit, Lee. But
you're on the public record now as well.
Yeah. I am. No, I am. If it does help for the podcast, and I was finalising it just before the meeting. I can send you.
I said that to Scott.
I can email you a training session plan for next week if you want to use that as part.
Email me what you've got for now, and Scott, have you got anything else that you need me to analyse while we're here now? So any session plan or anything like that?
I think we're pretty much up to week 9 now. So.
Okay.
If you want to come to, I think it's live. The one that we've got. It's if you've still got the link, it'll be updated.
All right. So you'll have to remind me. So what we'll do with James is we'll see where he's at, and then I'll do the same with you, and I'll split this session sort of half and half. So we've got about 45 minutes left between us. So we'll go 20 minutes on one, 20 minutes on the other, and then a bit of a debrief. So James, are you going to email me something? James, you're muted, bro. You're still muted. Your email, Scott, pre-season matrix. It was a link, yeah, Upton 2020.
It was, yeah. So that's live. So that one will be updated.
Cool. Okay, I'll start with you because James is still puffing around. Look at him.
Quickly editing it.
He does it on purpose so that he listens to the feedback you get, and then. And this has worked so well for those listening to have these two guys together because they don't live that far apart from each other. They can cross correlate ideas and it's worked really well, hasn't it? So session 1 Tuesday, session 2 Thursday. What I've got there is what you've just done this last week, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Okay,
so I will share the screen so that people who are on seeing clips can see it. This is where you've got to be really careful about what you show on your screen. So I will try and make that a little bit bigger too. This is how you know this is how everyone watching knows that it's a genuine It's not been planned. Okay, so you've delivered these sessions last week. This last week, yeah?
It was last week's, yeah. And
Okay.
yeah, there was session 1 for week 2.
Okay, so you've done session 1 for week 2. That's this one, yeah?
Yeah.
So is that week?
Oh no, the one above.
Week 2. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry to everyone who's getting dizzy on screen. Okay, so first of all, how did your week 1 sessions go? Because I remember us playing around with them quite a bit last week.
Yeah, no, they was really successful, to be honest. We're struggling a little bit in the UK with weather, but keeping the girls motivated when it was 0 degrees was pretty hard. But yeah, it went really well. Kept them moving, and achieved everything I wanted to within the session.
So in week 1, Scott worked to below match intensity, worked to a ratio of 5 minutes work and 3 minutes rest on as many things as he could. He looked at grip pass catch carry 3v2 and compressed defense in session 1, and he looked at exit sets, tackle technique, and ruck control work in session 2. So we've worked on having quite an overarching philosophy where we do 2 offensive things and 1 defensive thing, or vice versa in each session. So on Tuesday just gone, so yesterday, as I'm talking to you, you've done this session here, week 2, session 1. So you've done line speed as a warm up, rhythm runs. So 3 sets of 6 with 20 seconds rest. How did that go as a warm up?
Yeah, really good. We've been using rhythm runs for a little while now, so it's really. The defensive line's becoming really strong. It obviously improves the fitness as well, so it's great to see. It's great to see the girls coming up as one. And
I mean, mark it out of 10. Nice and arbitrary. How good's the line?
I'd say an 8, a good solid 8.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, they need
repeating that. Keep repeating that. Are you moving it around? Are you doing slide as well now, or?
We introduced slide for the first time at the back end of that. Just the concept of slide. I'm not sure if I mentioned, vast majority of my girls that within the team now, a good 10, 11 out of 14 hadn't even touched the ball before August. So we've delivered the basics up until this point. So it's and now we're just kicking on now. So,
you then moved into dummy half passing. We talked a bit about a drill last week. Can you explain that? See what? That was what happened.
I used the dummy half pass drill from the Rugby League Coach website.
Good lad.
Yeah, it works really well. I sort of referenced it there as well. And it's the dummy half pass 5.
Yeah.
There, but we've got our hooker, dummy half. She's new to the game as well. So we were just working on, and with other girls, just working on the approach play as they're coming into that position, just making sure they're sort of coming in as they're walking in there, nice and steady, looking at what's in front of them, playing with their eyes up, and then just that snap and just delivering that accurate pass. It's also been really useful for the girls just to get used to running onto the ball as well.
Did you find it was a good little, almost a breather for them as well after the warm up and dynamics? It was.
Yeah, that's it. We sort of did the warm up then into the dynamics, and then it's just something that kind of lets them settle back down to.
Yeah, it's almost like an extended warm up in a way. Yeah,
that's it. Yeah, and obviously, as I mentioned, we're struggling with the weather, so I don't want them to be still either. We need to keep moving. So a little bit.
What we might have to do with you is, if we've got 3 20-minute blocks, in essence, we might have to chop it down to 10-minute blocks or 5-minute blocks that we keep rotating. So Trent's done a session where he's done 10 minutes of one thing, then gone into defensive line, 10 minutes of something else, and he's doing that in 32-degree heat. So
yeah, I mentioned that to my assistant just the other day. Actually, I just mentioned Trent's session where we went through it, and I thought that might actually be quite useful to keep the heart rate up and keep them warm.
Yeah. And then your last thing you did some moves and.
Yeah, so we just delivered almost like a move workshop, explained what we wanted to achieve. Just then we ran through it just a few. I think it was six minutes that we had that set for, just to explain the move.
Yeah.
Then we took that into the game environment, so it was kind of just delivering that, and then putting it into play.
Did they respond to the game? Did they respond to the game well?
Yeah, they really did. It was kind of like we within the game environment, we encouraged within each set of 5 that they have to fit both of those moves in within that as well. So
So, and did they do the moves in the game? Is what I'm saying, or did they take some adjustment?
The kind of obviously drop offs quite simple ones. We've
okay, good.
They really did that. They're delivering that really comfortable and hitting the lines as I hope now, rather than it just been a simple one player running across and the other just going straight. But yeah, the blocker is a new play, but it was great to see that starting to be delivered within a game environment. So
okay, and
work the blocker, but
we talked about Matt. Oh, it will. You're never going to get that right, and also because you've put it into a game so quickly. When you put it into a game, it changes. I always use the example of punching the Klitschko brothers, right? If somebody's in front of us and sparring, things change.
Yeah.
Things, the scenario changes and we have to defend ourselves. And it's the same in rugby league. You can practice the moves all you want in a box. The minute you put some opposition in them, even if they're not going to try and hurt them, the minute you put opposition in, you run the risk of them not doing the move properly because they're putting self-preservation first, even if it's just a body in the way. So that's why it's a really important thing. Something else to talk about is you moved it up to match intensity. So to explain that to everyone, if you're sort of trying to build endurance in players, you might work to a ratio of 3 minutes work, 1 minute off kind of thing. So in games, you've doubled it to 6 minutes and 2 minutes based on advice. How did you find that from a building fitness perspective, which is a very basic term, but were the girls knackered?
They were, and they are a pretty fit set of girls, and their endurance is there already. But that was putting them under pressure. So yeah, it was definitely successful in that sense.
Did they enjoy it? Did you get feedback that they were enjoying it?
They really enjoyed the session, just maybe not so much the cold. The ground was literally freezing around the studs.
Well, you can't control that. You can't.
No, it's
all you can do is control how you react to it. So
yeah, to have 13 girls turn up when it's freezing like that is great. So
just make yourself sound like the victim because you're not running around. On Thursday, after your warm up, again you're doing another line speed warm up. I don't mind that in the sense that it's repetition. If you can get that line good, one of the big problems with teams that aren't that experienced is they forget to move back and up in a line. Right? Sounds ridiculous.
Really is. Yeah, no, it is.
What you might have to do with that, if you're doing it so much, is increase the meterage. So from 5 to 8 to 8 to 10 over time. You're then doing ruck control, dominant and 50-50 examples. So for those who don't know, dominant is a dominant tackle where the tacklers dominate. And there's a process that we teach. If you go on YouTube, you'll see that on my Rugby League Coach channel in the coaches playlist. But most rucks are 50-50, aren't they, Scott? And they're a battle. Yeah. Tell us about what you intend to be teaching them in that part of the session. So when you're essentially fighting to get somebody to the ground.
First and foremost, obviously the rules have changed in the game in the UK as well. So we're going to be ensuring that the tackle height is coming below the ball as well. So but still being able to control that ruck. So yeah, we're going to be working in freeze. We'll be rotating the runner and then working on the two players coming into the tackle and still ensuring that ball control is there and leaving the ruck in an effective manner.
I would have thought, mate, if you focus heavily on tackle technique, shoulder under the ball, the new rules, you'll survive under that. Because when people go in chesty over the ball, it lends itself to going over the top and near the melon. If you have a first contact under the ball, where people actually have to bend the legs, you can override that somewhat.
I've been working on that a lot with the sort of tackle one technique, really, where we've just been using the crash mats and really working on technique, just hitting under the ball. So yeah,
with the 50-50 ruck control, the key message you should get across is them not to wrestle or grapple against each other. So the term I often use is away.
Yeah.
Have an imaginative try line underneath you, and the attacker, in theory, is trying to get down to play the ball as quick as they can. So if you imagine it's a try line, you're doing everything you can to keep that ball off the try line, and you get them away as far as you can from that imaginary try line. And tell the players to remember that wherever their feet are, there's an imaginary try line, and they have to get away. And to explain that to people, if you are on the defensive side of the attacker when you tackle them, you push. If you end up spinning around the other side, you pull. And a lot of that is linked to the way you tackle. So I keep emphasizing your tackle technique. If your tackle technique's poor, you'll end up spinning to the wrong side of the tackle of the attacker sometimes and so many rucks go in the attacker's favour because the two defenders involved, or three, are actually wrestling their forces against each other rather than in tandem. So just focus on that. Looking at your good ball stuff, you said here you got left versus right, just play. How are you going to do your good ball in that? What's your methodology there?
Within the left versus right side, we'll split the ball players within that. So there's at least a ball player each side. We'll allow the dummy half to kind of switch between teams, but just to get them used to working as a team on each side, really. So they've created those relationships. I want them to be really tight in the work that they're doing for the good ball set.
Can I type something in here?
Yeah.
Can I type something? I don't know if it will come.
Yeah, no, I can see that. Yep.
All right. Have a look at the Find Space game. Again, it's on YouTube, but you've got access to the website too. The Find Space game encourages them to look up by play 3 and put the ball to space. I am telling you now that under 15s level, if your team is good at looking up and finding space and good ball and holds the ball, you will win more games than you lose. So in a left versus right scenario, that would be the perfect game for you. But remember, in good ball, it's essentially 13 people moving in different directions. So just remember. But what you'll be doing with the Find Space game is a good ball philosophy as opposed to which is
structure.
Yeah, I want shape. We're spread on the field. We've got field balance. I want to get the ball over there right now, rather than let's have three plays. I'll have a look at your Tuesday. Make sure you're good for Tuesday, and then we'll go over to naughty boy James Varley, who never does his homework. Red zone defense is your warm up. 5 minutes explanation of away. I would say keep your talking down to 30 to 1 minute, right? Just bang, bang, bang. Just say, right, I want you to do this. Just do it. Don't ask questions. Go. We've talked about the away tackle technique previously, so you've probably already covered that. And what you're going to be doing here in the warm up, you're going to be doing rhythm runs again, do you think? Or
well, I want to try and introduce them as much as possible. So the rhythm runs, the girls seem to really love them as a warm up as well. So it's crazy, but
they love rhythm runs. Yeah, all right. Yeah. Just change it a little bit at times. So do it moving up and down the field, or with slides.
Slide with it. Yeah, that's what we're developing too. So yeah,
it's so good for team camaraderie. The rhythm run.
Everything has kind of got communication.
Girl on your left, girl on your right.
Yeah, all that. Left, right. We usually pick a communication leader in there in the middle. And
I think the French term is esprit de corps, isn't it, or something? You go into tackle technique here, so just be aware that what we said about the previous session doing ruck control, tackle technique will influence it. So feel free if you want to switch those sessions around. It's up to you. Ratio of 1 on 1 off, good. We're doing an above match intensity week this week, which is interesting for the listener. Shields 5 meters away, 10 minutes, no shield. What are you going to do with no shields for tackle technique?
No shields. That's where we'll bring the crash mats in and really work on that.
Oh, good. Okay.
Hip level. Yeah.
So what? This is your challenge in the temperature too, right? Sometimes it's not going to be perfect, but you're going to have to move on because you're just going to have to keep moving on.
100%.
As opposed to stopping, explaining, stopping. You're going to have to coach a lot on the run. You know, have loud voice, talk over the top of them, get your feedback to 10, 20 seconds max. Go! Right?
Yeah, I quite look at Addison as well, so we can really get around and sort of, as you say, coach on the go and help them as give them the initial and then keep going as they're going through the drill.
Now, I do have a little bit of concern with this session in the sense that I think you're trying to cram too much in.
That 13 versus 13 red line game.
Yeah.
You need to remove that, please.
Yeah, I can. Okay, I've not got that concern anymore.
Yeah, no, I think what I've done is put that there, then I've moved it to the red zone defense above. So yeah, make it the warm up.
And then you've done good ball emphasis again. Now, go find space again, but this time you're going 8 minutes, 2 minutes rest, so you're lifting the intensity, which is good. And it's everybody down. Well. Everybody down, yeah. So just be aware that in those 2 sessions, you're really going to be getting in the philosophy of looking up, play into space. Right? Yeah. You're doing it at a lower intensity on Thursday, tomorrow, for you. Next Tuesday, you do it at a really high intensity. So don't be surprised if they get it wrong. Right? You can always go back to that. And then next week, we'll look at your Thursday and Tuesday again. And because you're a good boy, Scott, and got it all planned and ready, that's what we're able to do. All right, here we go. Right, the naughty boy in class, James Varley. What have you got for us, James?
I'm hanging my head in shame here, Lee. I've actually sent, I've emailed you a training session plan for next week. So if you can pull that up, we can share that. To put on the public record now of the podcast, you shouldn't hang your head in shame. We've said this before, haven't we? I've said this to you a lot, but I want to put it on the public record. I'm just
I know you are, but I want everyone to know that it's about for your benefit, and the problem is it's exemplified by where I was, what I said about Trent last night when I was speaking to him, and it's just you're busy people, you've got things to do, you've got jobs to do and everything, so there's no criticism, but you need to know where you're going. The analogy is, if you were going to Keighley to Manchester to come and see me for a pint when I'm back home, James, you wouldn't type your GPS. Can you see your plans on the screen, James?
I can see my plan on the screen, yeah. The date is, I just need to change the date.
Oh, don't worry about that. I'll fix that for you.
Yeah. You can do that. I don't know if you...
it's not a live document, is it? Okay. If you were coming to see me in Manchester for a pint from where you live in Keighley, you wouldn't type into your GPS Keighley to Huddersfield and then pull over in Huddersfield and then type in Huddersfield to, I don't know, Rochdale. And then
you'd have it all
Rochdale to Manchester. You'd have your direct journey to Manchester and you'd be able to plot your way across. And you'd know exactly where you're going. And if you need to during the journey, you would have a break. You know, that's the whole idea of the plan. But it's very what you are is very smart, because you listen to what I tell Scott, and then he's playing dumb, isn't he, Scott?
Literally,
at home, he's got a pile of plans like that, I bet.
I've got some plans. Yeah. I've got a plan. I'm building it up.
All right. So, what training have you done in the last week with the team?
Well, we had a good session yesterday. Actually, we started with a game. It was a 2-pass touch game, like we're going to do next week, and then we went on to the dynamics, and because a mistake, we just started training again last week, and players sometimes you set a starting time, but players, so you can get reasons that some players can't start till late. So a lesson I learned last week was to get straight into a game.
Yeah, we said, didn't we? Do a longer warm up in it as a game.
Yeah, and that
or
works.
Try and change the training time, put it back 15 minutes.
Well, yeah, if we can. Yeah, and try and do it one way or the other. So
because if they turn up 15 minutes late for that, you know they're bullshitting you.
Well, yeah, exactly. But it did work yesterday doing that, and then the dynamics, and then we went into grip pass, catch, carry with the passing lanes, and we're all doing it over a more shortened time and constantly changing the rotation in the line. So because you get players on So we had 11 players in the grid. So we had 2 lines of 4 and a line of 3. So you've got the players passing along, but if a player's at the end of the row, they're not catching the ball in the middle. So you've got to rotate the players around after each passing lane. So they're getting a go in the middle and a go on the edge.
Where did you learn that, James?
Learned that from your good self, Lee.
There you go. The reason I've brought that up is because I want the listener to realise this you've got here because of a process. So you wouldn't have thought about it originally, would you? You just put them in a grid, and this is what we've been talking about, Scott. Isn't it? Why do you do stuff? So if you get in a passing grid 1, 2, 3, 4, person 1, person 2, person 3, person 4, if you don't change them round, person 1 and 4 just do passing one way, and they catch the ball inside and pass it back inside. Whereas person 2 and 3 catch it from the left, pass it to the right, catch it from the right, pass it to the left. So you've got to change it. Left and right brain, left and right body, etc., etc.
Well, it's a left and right, and then that's trying to eliminate because naturally a right-handed player is going to be better at passing right to left, but you need to be able to exploit both sides of the field. So and
you will also have skill development benefits, because if you think about what a player does, let's say he starts in position 1, passes the ball, he gets a nice easy start, because all he has to do is pass the ball. But then when he gets to the other end, he's got to move to 2, and 2's got to move to 3, and 3. So they've actually they get a bit discombobulated. So then the next time the ball comes round, they have to take it from the right, pass it to the left. And then the next time they have to move to 3. So they're constantly switching around. And you've seen me in the past do north, south, and east, west games, haven't you? I've blown a whistle and gone. And there's evidence that suggests if you do things, if you teach 360, it's good for 180 and degrees. And what you're doing there is a sort of a version of that, if you like. You're making the player think on the spot and react as well as just catch and pass. So they've got to react, get in a new position, and have a good catch and pass, or else the coach has a go at them.
It's interesting that you say north, south, east, west as well, because at the moment we're having to train in the sports hall, indoor facility. So the north, south, east, west, the sports hall's wider if you're playing across. So the games like the fine space game will be far more effective if you're playing across. You've got
playing across, yeah. Restricted pass, play it lengthways.
Yeah, there's more space to attack. So
I should probably say at this juncture, so anybody listening, these games are on the free YouTube channel on the website. Restricted pass and fine space. Some of the biggest coaching jobs I've done, these are what I base my pre-season on. These 2 games, because you can change them however you want. Restricted passes, first 2 tackles, you're allowed 1 pass. Tackle 3, tackle 4, you're allowed 2 passes. It's a 4-pass game. 4-tackle game, my apologies. Fine space, you've got 3 plays. You've got to have found space by play 3. If you find space defined as green grass and fresh air, or in the case of James's sports hall, muggy air and some kind of coated floor, you get 3 more tackles. So they're encouraged to find space. And if you play one game one day and then the next day, it's actually really good again for that 180 sort of concept. And then when you score a try, you turn right round and attack the other way. So again, that gives it a 360 element as well. So I'm really glad you mentioned that stuff, James, because it gives the listener and the viewer what we've been doing basically for so long. We're analysing why we do these things.
Well, I'm particularly looking at making sessions as game-based as possible, because I do find that the players find it more enjoyable if it's a game.
Of course they do.
More competitive. And then the learners go, most of our session yesterday was game-based. We went back onto the 2-pass touch game, the double game and 2-pass touch game, and we played that for virtually the second half of the session, or definitely the last third of the session. And the players really enjoyed it, but they also were tired. I kept them going, and they were noticeably. I worked them a lot harder yesterday, and they enjoyed it, and you could see it. You could just see the communication, because the 2-pass touch game, they must do 2 passes on the tackle. So
that's on the website, isn't it? 2-pass.
Yeah. So it is. So many players have to be involved, and players are having to touch the ball. They can't hide. So
that's one of the games that's on the website and not on YouTube as well. So if anybody wants to find it, get a subscription. I've got your session up here anyway. So is this session plan, even though the dates are wrong, is this what you're going to do tomorrow?
This is what I'm going to do. Well, this is next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday. So they're only on one session this week.
That week, yeah, we can only use a sports hall one night a week.
What I will say to you, James, is two things. Number one, if you can only do one session, lift the intensity. So another time this week, if you can let me know which weeks you drop into one, that will change the above match intensity, below match intensity things that we've done. Because we've factored that in, haven't we, for your 9 weeks?
We've factored that in.
Sorry, your 8 weeks. Yeah, but it might change it. Now you've. But the other thing you can do, and this would be great for team spirit, team bonding, is there's nothing to stop you meeting somewhere else as long as you can get the clearance from the club and insurance is covered and all this, and as long as there's no new version of the Yorkshire Ripper knocking around. Meet somewhere in a car park or some kind of running track or something, or some kind of area, and do some kind of fitness work. I remember back in my playing days in England, if the fields were frozen or whatever, we went on the car park and did drills. So, times are different. It's not the 1990s anymore. So make sure you get your backside covered, right? Make sure you get the clearance from the club. But I think what you've got to try and do if you're a coach, and I know you've got your work commitments as well, is if you want to make your team improve, is you've got to always think laterally about how you can get what you want out of what you want. Because I've had the same thing in schools. I mean, I've had to think laterally at times. My main session was sometimes ruined by a school assembly going over time. Or, when I was at Manly, the training fields were getting irrigated or whatever the term is. So we had to do something different to adapt. So if you've got your potential assistant and there's somewhere that can go, it might be a gym. It might be a gym. You might approach a gym and say, we'll put you on the shirts if you give us an hour on a Thursday. Just something like that. I think because otherwise you're going to be doing all this work and you're going to be limited as to how far you can take them. If do you get what I'm saying? So even if you're at work, they're doing something to make them fitter or stronger or a bit more skilled.
And it's incorporating that in. It's very interesting you say that with the gym, because what do you think is the best stage to start weight training for players? Because obviously it's a key element as players get older.
Okay, personally, so I've got so much background on this. Some that say you should start weights whenever you want, as long as you're not lifting to ever, blah, blah, blah. By your age, your team's age, they can safely lift weights. However, technique is absolutely huge. The amount of NRL players who 10, 15 years ago were taught the wrong thing when it comes to deadlifts and squats in terms of technique, and then had long-term back issues, long-term groin issues, etc. So make sure you put it in the right hands. All right?
Right.
You're many things, James, but I don't think you're an expert on how to train people in a gym, right?
No, not really.
And get your backside covered again. So if you're doing that, make sure somebody qualified is and safe in the eyes of the law is doing that with them, and then and that you've got parental clearance for it. And the other thing is body weight training. So body weight training is great, and then depending on the size of the person. So one thing I'm doing at the minute, I mean, I'm quite a heavy bloke, so me doing press ups, push ups, I'm lifting over 130 kilos, right?
And you're naturally doing it because it's a natural exercise rather than using weights.
And sometimes if I don't feel like lifting 130 kilos, I actually go into the gym because I've basically stopped doing heavy weights now. And I'll get reasonably light dumbbells and just bench press them for some repetition. So, because I can do 20 push-ups without, worrying about it. But sometimes you just don't feel like lifting that weight, and there's ways around it. So, if your players are lifting very light weight, There's nothing to say that's not safe, but the technique is crucial. I always use the example of William Popowati, who, when he was a kid in my Harold Matthews side at Manly, he did his weight so light and so deliberately. He stood out like the proverbial compared to the other players. And then as soon as he was ready, he was lifting 3 times more because his technique was perfect. And that was a lesson to me very early in my coaching career, that about the importance of technique and just be very careful about doing that and just cover your backside. But just because you're not there and just because that sports hall isn't available doesn't mean they can't train.
I know on your website as well, there's a lot of fitness related things with runs. Running a certain number of meters and then having that bit of rest and doing. There's lots of things you can do without the ball as well.
That's right.
But obviously, a lot of the training does need to be with the ball generally.
Yeah. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's not. You can only do what you can do, right? So your homework has now got even bigger now, James. Right? We've still got to see this matrix, but I want you to try and have a look at what you can do when you're not there and the sports hall's not available. Because if you want to improve that team, they probably need to train twice a week, don't they?
Well, they do. Yeah, they do. So we can find some facilities where we can. Sometimes
I look for an MMA gym, James.
What's that, Scott?
If you look for an MMA gym or a jiu-jitsu gym where they've got mats, you can work on tackle technique as well there, quite safely.
Well, yeah, you can under a supervised.
How easy would it be for your boys to get to where Scott's girls train?
It's about what are you, Pontefract, Scott, aren't you? It's about an hour away from us.
Oh, I was going to say, imagine you could do a joint session. Opposed.
It'd be great if we could.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's other side of West Yorkshire, really, where Scott's from. So.
Well, see if you can work it out, because that's another thing that you can.
It is.
You can focus on. And I think the important thing for you, James, particularly with your work stuff, and again, this is really important for any coach listening, try and make sure they get coached when you're not there. Because the reality is there'll be times when you're not there. There'll be games that you're not there, by the sounds of it.
Well, there's going to be some time in 4 months when I'm over a lot nearer to you than I am to West Yorkshire.
That's right.
To Australia.
So you've got to put your trust in your assassistant or assistants and mentor them as much as you can.
As I've done on this plan here, part of the thing we're starting to do is I still need to do that where I set up a mic where I'm filming my own training session.
Mate, forget that. I want you to do your. I need you to do your matrix.
Yes. But one of the parents has actually done some little videos for me of the session.
Oh, nice! Send them to me. Send them to me.
So, yeah, I will. So this is some individual correction for players.
Google Drive.
And if I've got an assistant, we can look at doing that. It gives a chance for us to split off and do separate things in a session.
Let me look at your plan anyway. Let's get you ready. So this session is tomorrow or next Tuesday?
That's next Tuesday, Lee.
All right. So you're starting with the two pass touch game. That's fine. We've explained why. It says under core, individual correction for players, 5 minutes. 2 questions. Individual correction of what?
When looking at the video and me doing a bit of video analysis of the session and seeing what each player needs to pick up on from what I can see.
Okay.
And then getting that individual correction, making a plan and then.
All right. So how are you gonna do it? That's my second question.
Well, just split me and my assistant split off and work on the different things that we need to do. I mean,
so just be careful. You've warmed up, and then it sounds like you're going to be slowing down a bit there.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Right. So there's no point warming up and then slowing down.
No. So is the best part to do that as part of the warm up, in the middle of the warm up?
I struggle to see what you're trying to do here still. So I would do width pass. Again, it's a thing that's on YouTube for those watching. For the duration of your core period, because you've right, and then stop and do some correction. Number one, do correction on the run. So, Billy, I've noticed on the video you're not doing this right. So, focus on this now, right? Number two, because you're indoors, you can probably stop it at times and give some feedback for a bit longer than Scott will be able to.
Sometimes what I'm doing as well is in the middle of the game, I'm asking them a question. Like I blew the whistle yesterday, and they were playing the 2-pass touch game, and I was saying to them, when is the time to pass? And I was asking the players, when is the time to pass? And they were coming back with, when the hips are turned in, when a defender's hips are turned in, that's when you're looking.
Shakira, the hips don't lie.
No, so it's knowing that they understand it.
Now, what's your work-rest ratio for this session?
It's going to be above match intensity.
Okay. So you warm up and your width pass. Your width pass, if you do that continually, can be quite tiring. So do that the length of the court.
Okay.
Right? And then if you need to, go the other way for longer passes. But don't stop. Get them moving. Only stop to give feedback if you need to. Okay?
Yeah.
You've then gone to unit 3v2 and you've written under fatigue. What does under fatigue mean?
That means when there's 5 of them coming out, they're going down to the floor, getting back up again, and then running to the next grid with the 3 against 2. So,
so again, that's a drill that you've seen on there, right?
Yeah, on your website, yeah.
How long are you doing it for? 5 minutes. Why 5 minutes? What's your ratio? What's your ratio for above match intensity?
Above match intensity is 8 to 2,
which is 4 to 1.
Which is 4 to 1. Yeah. So that needs to really be.
Yeah. So this is the whole idea of the planning and the matrix. Like what you've done is probably you've just put 5 minutes, and I it's like what Scott was saying at the start of the session. The question why 5 minutes?
Why?
Why?
Yeah.
Right.
When I'm trying to fit it all into an hour, really, but there should be more broken down.
So I would scrap individual correction for players and do width pass.
Okay.
All right. And then restricted pass. Yeah. And then the other thing is you're doing 2 different games in your team.
I am, yeah. I'm using the restricted pass for the compressed defence.
Yeah.
Because that's when it's like as you explained earlier, the first 4 tackles, 1 pass allowed. The 3rd and 4th tackle, 2 passes. So it's likely to be more concentrated space-wise. So the compressed defence, looking at the line spacings and going up as 1 line. And if the defence aren't doing that, this game's more focused on defence. If the defence aren't doing that, an extra 4 tackles.
That's right.
So it's
what I'm concerned about here is you're going from one game to the next in the space of 20 minutes. Do you think they will get everything right in the first game and that you'll be able to go straight to the next game, or do you think you're going to need a lot of correction? And in the sports hall,
there's
if you keep giving repeat sets, are you going to run out of space a bit?
Well, yes, potentially, but potentially with a fine space game I could do, but particularly with that second game because I'm thinking doing that east-west across.
Yeah, but what I don't want you to do is try and do what your session smacks of a little bit. You're trying to do too much. You're trying to get everything sorted. Yeah. Again, at the risk of sounding like a stuck record, when you have your matrix, you'll know that you don't have to cram it all in.
Yeah.
Right? And you'll know, right? You'll know that. So, for example, have you only got one session next Tuesday?
Got 1 session next Tuesday, yeah.
Is that it?
That's it. That's it next week.
So here's a thought for you, right? Could your assistant coach not run a high-intensity session for you on Thursday? Make sure you've got everything legally cleared so that you can coach more in that session.
Well, yeah, it could try it, but it's just the problem is finding a facility league that we can use.
Yeah,
that's the problem.
Or a road.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Finding an outside facility we could use. Alternatively to a rugby league, to a sports hall.
Is there a car park in the sports hall?
It's at a school. It's at a local school, so it's just literally inside, really, in the car park. It's small, but yeah, we're potentially. Yeah,
I just think you're trying to cram too much into that session, and without seeing what else you've got available in the coming weeks in terms of work, there's nowhere I can say just put that in the next one. So this is why the matrix is important, mate. So
I have got dates of potential sessions that I can do listed in a separate thing. So I've literally worked it out.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's all right. I mean, you said what I do want to say though is that you're totally thinking on what I perceive to be the right lines, and cramming too much in a session is a very, very common problem. I was talking to Scott about taking things out earlier, right? But Scott did say with his matrix, he knows he can. He does, you don't need to. I mean, really, in that session, your team can almost know exactly how you're going to play in round one after that session, and you don't need that. You don't need that. You don't need that.
No, well, I suppose it's that less. If you're doing less is more. If you're concentrating on less and making it better, spending more time on that less to perfect it before moving on to the next thing.
And what I really want you to focus on as well is if you just go week to week in your planning in pre-season, you'll lose track of what you've done and what you've not done because it's all in different documents. And it's just human nature that we forget what documents we've put together sometimes.
It is, so it's better in one document.
It's better in one document.
Yeah, right.
So I can see from Scott where he's going, and then in his session plans, your session plan's detailed, right? But I don't know where you're going with it. Whereas with Scott, I know where he's going with it. The next stage with Scott is to make look really detailed session plans and video.
An issue we still have at the moment is getting these players. We've got the forms, getting the players registered with the club, the new players. So we're working on that. I've got some equipment. I've literally got some tackle shields and tackle bag and crash mat that I bought. But I don't.
You should be all right with tackle shields. And the other thing too is you get the kids to get a letter of consent from their parents to doing tackle technique.
Right. And get something actually signed.
Yeah, just say I give permission and I accept. But don't do person on person. Do shields.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Be very careful. But there's ways of doing that. Have you got enough out of this session, gents? You might be nearly ready for bed.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah.
No.
I think we can watch this one back, can't we?
Thank you so much, and thanks for going on the public record on episode 5 of the Rugby League Coach Podcast.